And when you really start to kind of go beyond the known, like the known self and life as you thought it was, and reality as it thought it was, um, you don't know where you're going. That's the thing with the unknown. Um, so there's this phase of the process where we kind of know that we need to go beyond the mind. We need to go beyond all these ideas and understandings. But there's something in us that feels scared, that wants to hold on to that because it has become a source of safety for us.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have just got used to living that type of way that we search for safety in, you could say, knowledge or in the mind. So first, it can appear as fear, like a very maybe subtle fear or even intense fear that you are actually asked to let it all go. And then that's the amazing thing that a true, like a genuine safety can actually arise from that unknown when you relax into it.
Hello, Vivi.
Hi, Ilona.
How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for coming to the podcast.
Uh, it's nice to be able to talk about these things and see where it takes us. The
Yes.
conversation, yeah.
Well, the podcast is called Awakening Now. So, what is your definition of awakening? How do you see it?
Um, that's a really good question. Um, well, I like to call it the natural state. Um, that seems to be like a easy way to talk about it without making it sound something far away from the everyday experience or something mythical like enlightenment, right? Um, so yeah, I would just call it the natural state of true being or of our true nature. And but there would be many other ways to talk about it as well, for sure. So because it's really something that is beyond all descriptions, all definitions, and that's why it's so uh, yeah, interesting to try to talk about it. Yeah.
Hmm, Wonderful. I see that there are many awakenings, and one of them is awakening to the natural state. So I guess this
Mhm.
is this is what we are talking today about. Sometimes people come in on the show and they are talking about different awakenings. It's good to know about what we
Yeah,
are talking about before we start.
yeah, I agree. There are many different type of awakenings, like you say, and many different type of perceptual shifts that can take place. But yeah, what I would call the natural state is something that's the common ground for them all. Um, yeah, something like that.
Great. So, would you like to share a little bit about what happened in your experience, in your story, how this awakening happened?
Yeah, it's right now where I am at the moment. Um, it's a little bit like mm, I'm in this state of just silence, and yeah, so trying to create a kind of story about the person who went through all these experiences and phases and shifts and challenges and all that. In a way it's very real, and I think it's good to share these personal stories and accounts, because at least for me, hearing other people sharing them has been very valuable and supporting in my own process. But yeah, where should I start? Maybe you want to ask a more specific question.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's like, tell me a story, but which story to tell?
Yeah, yeah. And then the story easily kind of condensates into this particular form. And I don't know, it would be nice to explore it in a fresh way.
Hmm. Let's say like this. This show is for a seeker, somebody that is watching videos and is looking for awakening and is trying to get what is this all about. And there is seeing these people on internet talking about this fundamental shift, this natural state. But from that perspective of a seeker, it's like a big wall there, how to find it.
Right.
So I'm curious and I'm inviting you to share about that crossing of that line of, where you were a
Yeah.
seeker, some kind of into realization or recognition,
Yes.
or that fundamental shift, like just before the shift and how it happened.
Well, I think it all starts, first of all, from a moment when it really becomes clear for us that this is a real possibility, not as a philosophy, not as a possible, option for some people who practice decades and decades or live in a foreign cultures and ashrams and so on. But it's a real possibility for me right now, basically.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that I'm going to anymore postpone into the future or so on. So when that possibility awakens experientially, and it really becomes the most interesting thing for us, like the most fascinating thing. Even we can't really explain why, because it's kind of hard to say what is it there that's kind of pulling us. But it's like something from deep within starts to awaken and starts to break through the conventional way of seeing the world and seeing the self and what we are told that what life is about. And it's like a deep mysterious wall that kind of starts to crack through from within, I would say. And then we kind of go through, I think many of us, all kind of phases when we a little bit play with it. And, it can be kind of like a hobby, even a serious hobby, I would say. Like for me, it became very serious hobby, but it was still a hobby. And then I reached this point which was very, very specific for me. Um, where I just say to myself that this is the only thing that really matters. like everything else is just going to be chaotic mess, and it has been a chaotic mess, and nothing really makes sense. And this is the only thing that really feels um, that I'm going to invest my life for. And I don't know what it means. I don't know what it's going to do to my life. Um, but I'm going to give it my everything. And I don't know where I'm going, but I know that somehow something in my like almost like it's almost like a deep genetic, I feel like knowledge that we carry with us, and then it unlocks and is like, wow, it felt very familiar for me when this kind of deep conviction really settled in that this is a possibility, and I'm going to do it. I don't know how to do it. And yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah. And then what happened?
um, Well, I went through this, what's often called the process of awakening. And for me, I can kind of see two main shifts that happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I call the first one, well, the first awakening. And then I had a much more deeper and thorough shift 2 years after that. And I I kind of feel that those two shifts were different than any other experiences or insights because they were very obviously permanent shifts at the way of perceiving reality, at the identity level. Um, so yeah, and especially the second shift was very, very like all encompassing. It was very energetic.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like not just that type of clear seeing, but like this type of sense that the like the energetic core of my being or the psyche that I had felt prior to that moment as some sort of center, energetic center of the experience. It kind of um, dissolved, basically dissolved into kind of energetic openness, boundlessness
Uh-huh.
that's very, very viscerally felt. And um, and yeah, there's been a kind of acclimation to that and many, many other insights then that followed after that kind of big release or big shift.
Mm-hmm.
And that was 2.5 years ago.
Oh, fascinating. So what happened? Do you
Um,
remember? Like what was the last push, the last thought, or maybe
mm,
something happened that
well, at that point,
triggered
I
that?
had been kind of deep in this inquiry. Um, and in this kind of very, you could say, concentrated place for a couple of years, right after the first awakening. Like this has had kind of became like 7 days a week, 24 hours a day kind of thing that I couldn't anymore separate practice from anything else. And it would just be there all along, kind of not as something I was just thinking about, but
Mm-hmm.
something that I was really, really just um, orienting towards with the whole of my being and with a very, very like kind of intense aspiration, I would say. And then, yeah, the last kind of thing that I remember that I felt that there was this trauma that kept kind of showing up and surfacing again and again and again and again. And I felt that was somehow that was holding the identity still somehow locked to itself. And on that day, I just put this intention that I'm ready and I'm willing to feel whatever needs to be felt so that it can unravel itself because I was just I just felt at that point that I didn't know what it meant, but after that there was a kind of bigger release, I would say a kind of um, Kundalini release that it really really came out.
Mm-hmm.
It really really came out, and it was first so destabilizing like the day after, I remember I never felt as destabilized in my whole life. And I would just feel that something is really weird. I would wake up and I would be like there would be just this very interesting energy, like, you know,
Uh-huh.
and and I would kind of just walk around in my apartment and doing my normal things. And then there was just this kind of voice that not really from the mind, but from the gut that aroused and it was just like saying like, yeah, this failed. Like whatever I had been doing for 2 years, like this very kind of powerful inquiry, suddenly there was just this point like it's done, it failed. Like whatever
Uh-huh.
it was. And it was just so astonishing for me that I just kind of sit down into meditation like I would usually do in the morning, but in a kind of this state of destabilization. And right when I closed my eyes, then this release, energetic release
Uh-huh.
happened. So I guess that's a little bit of a classical story, but yeah, I really needed to reach that point of amazing failure,
Right.
amazing failure, and yeah, then it was there, that kind of complete surrender
Wow.
or grace.
I
And
hear you.
after that, it was like these filters, they just started to kind of fall away. And it took all the way about 1 or 2 weeks. They just started to fall away, fall away, fall away, fall away. Like any sense of like subject, object, any sense of world that is other than myself, any sense of that there is an inner and outer, uh, any sense of solidity, like all of that. It just kind of kept unfolding, unfolding, unfolding into this just total transparent luminosity. And then even that kind of dissolved, and there was like a total disidentification from form. That's how it felt like, from any kind of form, even that type of really, really subtle form that I am awareness. I am basically anything whatsoever.
Mm, I hear you. And it sounds like there was a lot of determination, a lot of readiness, a lot of focusing, a lot of energy just going into that inquiry
Yeah.
to the point of it exhausting itself
Yeah,
completely.
yeah. A
Well,
lifetime of determination. Yeah.
that's really good to hear because sometimes people they just dip their fingers or dip their toes in this seeking and they say, yeah, enlightenment 5 o'clock, why is it not coming? You know,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I've been inquiring for 3 months now and I'm still not awake.
Yeah, and it's so amazing, like when it then kind of happens and you see it for what it is, that sense of contractedness, that sense of contracted self, and like it's all like it's nothing other than that deep, deep desire in us of reality to wake up to itself, and it feels like a suffering, or it feels like longing, or it feels like a kind of desperation on the other side. But when on the other side, you can kind of see and feel how it never ever was anything other than just this boundless, infinite freedom, freedom and ease and amazing, just kind of yeah, there's no really words for it. I usually don't want to call it anything or give it any qualities, because easily the mind then gets these ideas about it, and it's just so beyond any concepts. Yeah, it's transconceptual. It's
Oh, nice. Transconceptual. I like that.
yeah.
Wait. Hmm. And here we are.
Here we are, yeah. So and it's interesting because in a way everything is exactly the same and nothing is the same. Um, so like there's this loop, you go all the way, like a full circle, and then you end up to this place, which is not a place where you always been, that you never left. So there's not really arriving, because you cannot really leave from this uh, um, original condition of ours, because it's so primary to what everything is. Like it's not possible to be anything other ever, for me or for anyone. And that's the perception, and well, kind of seeing that that's just there. So it's kind of like this going beyond awakening, and because awakening always comes with this idea of unawakening, right? But
Hmm?
when you kind of see that that's all there is and all there ever was, it kind of loses its meaning. I mean, awakening for whom and from what? It's just yeah.
Yeah, that beingness or presence or openness, or whatever words we can use, is always here. It's always been here. And it's always now. So
Yeah.
that is.
And it's always been like awake because that's its nature. It's just this like lucid uh immediate presence that it's awake and it's here and now and it's always here and now and it's just spontaneously just here and now and it's kind of like not dependent on anything. It's and that's what you can realize experientially when you have these awakening insights that yeah, what you are, it's something unborn and undying.
Mm.
Yeah.
And yet the mind needs to go for that trip, try to find that out.
Yeah,
Get all
yeah.
these ideas and concepts, and oh, I want this, I want that, and give me awakening. Yeah, it needs to go on its own trip, and we just wait here for it to complete its journey and to fail and get really disappointed, get really hopeless.
Yeah, yeah. It's like this amazing disappointment. It's like
Yeah.
and it's totally worth it. It's like amazing joke also, I feel.
Mhm.
But the joke is on, on myself or so I don't mind.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's interesting because, failing is not what it seems. The mind is so set up on of achieving something, getting something, or becoming something. But then this failure is always like running behind. Like, when are you gonna stop and recognize that you failed? But no, I don't want to recognize and fail. I keep going. I keep going for another 20 years if I need to, just not to look at that. I fail, that failure.
Yeah.
But the entrance is
Yeah,
right
failure is
there.
a great teacher. It's a great teacher like that. And yeah, it's always there whenever there is any kind of projection into reality to be in a certain way. And then it's always there to show show like this reality where there is no control basically, and nothing can really be known and nothing needs to be known. And any attempt to somehow control or manage the experience, it's always gonna fail. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not what the mind wants, literally. Mind wants to control. But the
The mind
arrival
wants
at
to
this.
control, but I think in the end, what the mind really, really wants is to kind of resolve back home into this. It's because it's very peaceful for the mind to just be resolved into this infinite openness. So yeah, but for some reason, first it kind of has a life of its own, almost like that conditioned mind, and um, it's kind of like in this contracted form, and then when that contractedness releases itself, then the mind also is seen as nothing other than this.
Mhm. Yeah, it's beautiful.
It is beautiful. There's a lot of beauty beauty in this. Yeah, yeah, a lot of beauty for sure. Even it's beyond that kind of beauty that the mind is sometimes, you know, kind of there's beauty in everything, not just in the things that we used to think that are beautiful. And there's beauty in, well, ordinary mundane stuff. And then there's beauty also in things that we would usually consider maybe like really uh, challenging or devastating or kind of even gut wrenching. So any kind of experiential flavor has its own beauty, I would say. It's the kind of beauty that just breaks your heart open for for Yeah, for whatever this is, life, reality, mystery, great mystery.
Mm-hmm. Just lovely to be without any trying or any trying to get somewhere.
Yeah, yeah, like all those ideas, and they're so strong, mm, that are part of the conditioning that the body mind goes through, that we need to kind of earn our worth by being someone and achieving this or that. And if you don't have those things to show about yourself, then you kind of you almost feel like there's this unworthiness to your very sense of being. And it's all just thoughts, basic thoughts and beliefs, but they really, really manage to kind of obstruct this natural way, which is just so where the value is just in this, you could say, sense of being, and just this appreciation that anything is at all. And you know yeah.
So, do you work now with people? Do you assist their awakenings? I saw that you are doing retreats. It's interesting.
Yeah,
Can you tell a little bit about
just
what you
finished a
do?
retreat here in Finland, had this really beautiful retreat. Mm. So yeah, I've been doing kind of small retreats here in Finland now for a couple of years. And I also started to do one-on-one work with people now within the last, I would say, like half a year
Mhm.
or so. Um, so yeah, it's I love it. I love when I get to connect with all kind of people, and from this place, and it feels very um, there's this deep kind of sense of alignment that I feel that comes with being able to share about these things. And yeah, so I don't really like to see myself as a teacher necessarily, but yeah, I've facilitate facilitate this, or I'm open to talk about this with whoever is into this stuff.
Wonderful. Yeah, I love that too. I've been doing this for a while now. And it's
Yeah,
amazing, like I noticed that there are some patterns and people come in at the same time with the same kind of situation, mental, psychological, emotional situation. And it's always something for me also in there. It's just like mirrors coming in. Thank you for that.
yeah,
And we can all
yeah.
look at that together. It's
I've
beautiful.
experienced that too. Like I learn a lot from everyone.
Mm.
Yeah. And then people, when they kind of start to have these um, openings or insights, and they speak from that place, you can kind of recognize it because it's so validating, and it comes from yeah, in such a you could say, like the source is opening up as them, and it's great to hear, oh, that's the way you experience it, that's the way it opens up for you, and I can kind of then attune with that, and like learn new
Mhm.
perspectives like that. And I try usually to like really listen to people when they speak, like how they are using the words, because maybe they use them in a different way that I do. So if they say something like unity or no self or kundalini, then like I'm like, okay, well, what do you mean by that? Like
Hmm.
how do you experience that? And that I find it's really, really, really good. It's really great to kind of stay fresh with the words we use, and all the time check in the direct experience, like, okay, what do I actually mean when I say that? So that, like, I'm really interested in that type of speaking that's kind of coming uh spontaneous and fresh, you
Yeah.
could say, from the
Hmm.
source or something.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes it's just being with somebody that is already open with no central contraction can help to release that tension that's built up.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes that's the most powerful thing, that you just rest in this unconditioned presence. You just rest in this open uh, awareness. And yeah, and there's this like great warmth or radiance that I feel that kind of starts to become very salient. So like my site is called Sensing Radiance. I like that word a lot because it's so descriptive of that presence. Like awareness can sometimes sound a little bit abstract or even mental.
Mhm.
So that's why I like to always emphasize that it has that quality of like warmth, radiant warmth, like indiscriminating radiant warmth.
Beautiful. I use word sweetness. It just feels
Sweetness.
like sweetness. It's sweet.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
There's some quality of sweetness. What you say, radiant.
Yeah. Quality of sweetness and softness, like, oh, yeah,
Hmm.
like no edges, and no boundaries, and just this kind of fluidity also.
Right. What would be your advice for somebody who's listening and want that? I want that. How to get it? I'm looking for it. I know it's there. And you people are talking about this. I had enough of listening. How to get there? What would be your advice, if any?
Yeah, I would just connect with that heart's longing, and but in an experiential way. So meditation is a great way to just like explore that, to really um, kind of relax into the presence, relax into the body, and see if the longing can kind of make itself known in the experience. And because like it is what you are, and deep inside you never really forgot that. So you kind of just want to come to that state of a remembrance, right? um, and trust, because there can be a lot of doubts, uh, at least in the first phase of this journey. I think there can be a lot of doubts, whether this is even possible, and or doubt about anything whatsoever. The doubt is, I feel, very, very predominant, and it can be very intense just prior to the first awakening. Um, so you kind of want to um, yeah, you want to really trust in your own experience. You want to really trust this capacity in yourself, that your body knows how to go through this process of awakening. you have that intuition, and if you give it just like space in your life, like space and time, that you have a little bit more time to just be and listen to that intuition, listen to that instinctual knowing, then it can start to kind of sprout, and then you just kind of attune with that. So inquiry is another great way, and there's so many different ways to do the inquiry. Like my way was a little bit intense, but you can also do inquiry in a much more, I guess, gentle
I
manner.
think there's nothing wrong with intensity because that intensity can be the fuel. Like I'm burning for it. Now the intensity can be helpful
Yeah,
actually. Right. So
yeah,
let's get intense. Let's get intense looking at that longing.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. There is something knocking from inside saying, come here, come here. It's just meeting that and seeing what's there. But as you mentioned, very valid thing, there is a lot of doubt and not trusting. So I think that needs to be looked at before anything else, like trusting your own experience.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because, people will go and watch these videos or go to retreats or satsangs and they pick up other people's stories about their experience. And then there's something lacking here. I don't have the experience like they had. Or this is how it should be. It's not like this here. So something is missing or it's not right. And that doubt is the killer, really, because our experience is the only one we have. Nobody
Yeah.
else can have your experience. Talking about the human being that is looking for awakening, nobody else can have your experience.
Yeah. And when you really start to kind of go beyond the known, like the known self and life as you thought it was, and reality as it thought it was, um, you don't know where you're going. That's the thing with the unknown. Um, so there's this phase of the process where we kind of know that we need to go beyond the mind. We need to go beyond all these ideas and understandings. But there's something in us that feels scared, that wants to hold on to that because it has become a source of safety for us.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have just got used to living that type of way that we search for safety in, you could say, knowledge or in the mind. So first, it can appear as fear, like a very maybe subtle fear or even intense fear that you are actually asked to let it all go and enter to something that where there are no reference points, where you cannot really see anything. But then if you are really willing and able to um, enter there experientially, and no one can really tell how to do that, but you can do that. This is what I know for sure, that everyone has that capacity to enter there. And then that's the amazing thing, that a true, like a genuine safety can actually arise from that unknown when you relax into it. And sometimes the unknown can be also felt like a kind of emptiness, because there's no reference points, there's no, like, nothing to hold on, or groundlessness, I guess. It's also one way. So but when we really allow ourselves to completely dissolve into that, then a completely different kind of peace and safety arises from that, which is very mysterious because you can't explain it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's nothing there, and yet um, that's a true foundation somehow.
I hear you. Yeah, when somebody is seeking for this, to recognize the natural state, or recognize what am I with this? It always seems like it's something to do. It's something in the future. If I do this, that will happen. If I get there, I'll see. But it's always an invitation to come back to,
Yeah.
to what is already here. Because the freedom and peace and everything is already here. It's not, you can't get it by achieving it. You can only notice that what is already free.
Yeah,
So it's
exactly.
kind of mind's twist coming back to exploring what is here.
Yeah, it's almost like you all the time take a backward step and backward step
Mm-hmm.
instead of going towards something. And then when you kind of collapse all the way, that which you can't go further, then that kind of collapses into itself. So then there's just one thing. But first it can feel a little bit like you take a step backwards and you find this kind of background presence or awareness, which feels much more primary than this experience of being immersed into the content of experience. And uh, then there can be this subtle duality still there, the background subject and the content of experience, and that can then also then dissolve, because there really is just this indivisible, seamless uh, openness where nothing can really be separated. Nothing can be separated, but everything is also very clearly just being itself. That's also the paradox about it. Like all the textures and all the kind of qualities of sense experience are very distinctly being themselves, but at the same time, you can't really differentiate or find boundaries. Um, yeah,
I was just thinking, this is here right now. And it's so mysterious, really, that it cannot be seen so simply. But it's already here right now. Okay, let's take that as a ground zero. It's already here right now. That freedom, that uh, sense of naturalness, being aware is already here right now. And the mystery
yeah,
is how the mind can override that with some ideas and some concepts not to see it. So
yeah,
sometimes I say to people, you either see it, you either know it, or you think you don't. Like literally, you think yourself out of this natural state. You think the mind thinks itself out of it, like fighting, wanting the peace, but not wanting to give up, wanting to be at rest, but not wanting to let go of all the conceptual rubbish, basically.
yeah. I think that's a great way of saying it. Yeah, that the mind is thinking itself out of it, and there's a lot of energy that goes into it. That when it does that, it's like a great effort to keep ourselves somehow to create this artificial sense of separation and push and pull and all of that struggle. Yeah.
So that's the great mystery, isn't it? It's not the mystery that this is. This is okay.
Yeah.
I am. There is this beingness. There's always here, never changing. My eyes are open or closed. I'm sleeping or awake.
Yeah.
It's always here, right? And then there is this idea that I need to get somewhere. I need to become awake. That thought alone is such a killer, joy killer, especially when it's taken seriously. But it has to do that to come to complete failure and giving up, surrendering.
Yeah.
It's fascinating, isn't it? This
It
whole
is fascinating. Yeah.
history.
Like it's like sometimes I like to call this no self, but then
Mm-hmm.
it's more like because there's not self, at least in the same way that there used to be. But then when I'm like, well, what that self was, that's kind of like that's very bizarre to try to explain. Like, yes, something was here that it's not here anymore, but also it never really was here. So how can something be there but not be there, and then at some point it's just gone. And that's definitely the the very mysterious phenomenon. Yeah.
That's the true mystery.
This is the open secret, I guess someone called it like
Yeah.
that.
I think Tony
Yeah.
Parsons, open secret.
Yeah. Yeah.
Open secret is you're already free. There's nothing else but this.
And
That
at the same time,
openness.
it does feel very real, that existential contractedness, right? It's not just a matter of clear seeing. It's very physically felt experience, and a kind of heavy experience. At least for me, there was this psychological kind of heaviness that came with it, that was felt in a very physical way. So, so then when that releases, um, it does feel different in the body, like the
Mm-hmm.
lightness, the quality of lightness, uh, but also groundedness. But again, groundedness in groundlessness. So
At
yeah,
least for me, the groundedness wasn't right there. I was blissed out, flying with the birds up in the sky.
yeah.
It was so tiring. So I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep for months. I was
After
losing
the
weight.
awakening,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Until I found the ground, what I needed to ground myself somehow. That
yeah. For
helped.
me too. Like there was that period after, and like you say, with the sleeping and eating, like very like I don't want to say challenging, because it didn't feel like a problem, but I just couldn't sleep. Like it was almost impossible to sleep, or I just slept at very odd hours, and I couldn't also really eat much, and I didn't feel like eating much. But I don't think any of that is really a problem. It's only if the mind is starting to react to it and starting to panic, like that there's something it's not right here, and then that can create a little bit of um yeah.
It didn't feel like a problem. It just felt weird.
Yeah.
But it was really good to find the way to ground myself. That made a big difference. Like, come back off your clouds into the
And how would
humanness.
you
Yeah.
say that that happened, the grounding?
Well, just knowing that helped. And yeah, it was just giving permission to come back into humanness again. Like I don't need to fly like an air balloon where the wind flows. I can be solid, rooted,
Mm,
connected more to the earth,
mm,
connected to the body.
yeah.
Yeah, none of it was a problem, but it was getting tiring at some point.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's so important that there is that full reentrance to the humanness somehow, because only that can ground this. Otherwise, there can be this really subtle distinction. At least I can kind of recognize that for myself, that when I was in that phase after the awakening that lasted like maybe a year or year and a half or something, that there was a subtle distinction, that even though it was undivided and it was very clear that everything is one, it still felt like this kind of infinite, unborn immensity. Um, it wasn't entirely in sync with
Mm-hmm.
the actual body mind experience, human experience, and all of its, you would say, relative dynamics that it's engaged with. So that felt for me just really complete when that kind of synced into itself.
That's the whole process.
Yeah.
Mm. The whole process of coming home, where you never left
Yeah, and it
home.
never ends. I feel it really never ends. Um, like I wrote to you in when we were exchanging emails, that for me, this hasn't been a static thing, that just awakening happens and then there's just some sort of, awakeness. I feel it the realization, it has a kind of a growth pattern, like that. First, it was almost like newly born. Everything was just so fresh, like it kind of saw itself in everything, and and that was its own period, and it had its own beauty to it. And then came other phases and kind of challenges, and even it's all the time being itself, it's very clearly also going through some sort of yeah, almost like a growth, just a natural growth.
Mm-hmm.
um,
And did you have that I got it, I lost it phase? Was that in your experience or not?
no, for me it never felt like that after that second awakening that I had, because it more felt like that um whatever that energetic aspect of the self had been, it just wasn't there anymore. So it's not really something that can come and go.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So
so
what do you think is going on with people when they are in that I got it, I lost it phase?
um, I think it's that's more about that clear seeing aspect of awakeness, because it's a kind of like a perceptual kind of window. You could say that it can kind of open and then it can
Mm-hmm.
close, and it can open and it can close, and it's just a phase for a lot of people to go through, that it kind of does that before it kind of opens and doesn't close anymore. And you can't really do anything about it when it's kind of opening and closing like that, or any kind of reaction to that will just create little bit of turmoil usually in the system. um, so I don't know why it does that, but it's a little bit like, I guess that it's just not so black and white. It's not like, wow, there happens some sort of shift, like you turn the light switch on and suddenly the lights are on and now awakeness is there. I mean, it can happen like that, but most of the time it's a little bit like there can be this intermediary phase, or like a kind of twilight phase where you are waking up, and it's like waking, 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 and kind of stabilizes like that for some people.
Well, you
Because
mentioned that in your experience there was looking at trauma. So perhaps there could
yes,
be
for
an
me that
element of
was
that, you know, because the
mm-hmm,
things that we're running away from, or the things that we don't want to feel,
mm-hmm,
they come into this light now and they have to resolve. And
yeah,
that's what is holding the strongest. So perhaps looking at in that stage, it may be worth looking at that possibility that there's some trauma there, or something emotional, or
mm-hmm,
something traumatic happened before that needs to resolve. And it's just giving time for that to open up.
yeah, yeah, I think so. It's just that the identity is still bound to those, you could say, unresolved experiences, and every time when they arise, and we are meeting them fully, and we don't really need to do anything other than just to feel them fully,
Mm-hmm.
then some of that uh, kind of entanglement or binding, it's resolving, resolving, and until the identity kind of releases itself from that experience that we've been, like the
Mm-hmm.
system has been carrying sometimes our whole life, because a lot of these traumas, they are very, very early experiences for many people, so it's really been there like your whole life. It can feel like that, and it is possible to in that sense to be free of them, that they don't anymore define you in any way. They don't define what you are. They can still arise in the experience, but it's more like just part of that indivisible wholeness. And you know, it's not even a part because there are no parts. But so that's the fascinating thing, I think, that I discovered after the second awakening, that you could say the remnants of self could arise. So the remnants of separate self, I guess that's one way of saying it, that we're still that the system was still carrying these experiences, but it was all experienced from the perspective of wholeness and like indivisible, seamless wholeness. So even those apparent, you could say, experiences of trauma and separation, they were felt from that place of um, unbroken wholeness. And I think then they really can resolve themselves in a deep way. They come home, like everything comes home to this.
So basically, there is no quick fix.
Huh?
There is no quick fix.
Yeah, there's no quick fix, and I don't think there's no like perfected state, and there's no need for perfected state. Like it's only the self that is kind of desiring for some sort of perfected condition, and maybe it starts to imagine that all this awakening thing, it's gonna be that. But yeah, I was recently just reading this. It's a little Zen text. I think it's called the Verses of the Fate Mind or something like that. Do you know that?
No.
No. So in the end, it says that the realization is to be without anxiety about non-perfection, something like that. Is the complete absence of anxiety regarding non-perfection about this, you know, human aspects, and that feels for me very like resonant. That feels like the, you know, true freedom.
Freedom to be, to feel, to experience.
Yeah, there's no,
Yummy.
everything can just yeah, be as it is. And there is, in an absolute sense, you could say there's this innate perfection or completeness to everything. And then at the human level, you know, there's this kind of imperfectness, you could say, like, and that's beautiful, you know, and it's one of the paradoxes of the realization that it is like that.
And would you have any final words or any final advice or anything to say? Like maybe within touch of something that you want to share.
No, maybe for someone who's going through something really challenging and really feels alone, um, there can be so many moments and phases on this journey that the aloneness can kind of come through, or even loneliness, because it is something that majority of the people can't relate to. Like when we are in this process and start to be interested about it and kind of really invest into it. So there's a kind of aloneness connected to that, and for me at least was very important to understand that it's not loneliness. Sometimes it can appear, you know, with with the sense of loneliness, which is more about the sense of separation. But with the realization, there can be this mysterious aloneness, which is not loneliness, which is like deep interconnectedness and intimacy at the same time, but it's not really togetherness. And yeah, just kind of having trust in that also. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I love the golden light coming from your screen and the picture and the light and everything. Just so
Thank you.
wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Viivi. It's really a joy to meet you.
You too.
And thank you everyone for watching, for listening. And if you have a comment or question, just something to share, just write down in the comment section, like, share, and come back for more. See you next week. Bye for now.